There's two reasons why people stopped reading. First is school, and second is the shift in reading culture and in entertainment in general. The way that school taught you to read by mandatory reading materials, aka those boring books that 90% of them you don't remember and were useless, 10% were pretty cool, and maybe 2, 3 were amazing. Well, that is in the case if you don't need to, go through a 600-page book in 2, 3 weeks, only to need to remember such autistic details like the glove size of the main love interest of the main character. That isn't a joke. This literally came up in my high school. And reading books like this while being penalized for not remembering something as minor as half a line of text in a 600-page book, you getting penalized for it is what built up the resentment for reading in many people. Of course, I'm taking the most extreme example here, but a lot of times it's similar, and it doesn't need to be as extreme to really, kind of give you a little trauma that is related to reading. Because then reading becomes that hard slog-like grind where you're obsessed with remembering every little detail and, getting annoyed at yourself when you don't remember something because that was ingrained in you. And it's wrong way to go about reading. Absolutely wrong. Because if you do that, you take the enjoyment out of it. You make reading a chore, which it should not be. Reading should be one of the more fun parts of your day. And that sort of approach to reading completely destroys the joy of it and also limits what you could take out of the book if you were able to think freely. And here's the thing, books that you would enjoy reading are now are like ruined kind of for you a lot of the times. Yeah, of course 1984 is gonna be, pretty cool. Regardless, it's really hard to not like 1984 when you pick it up, but when you would be able to think freely, you would be able to get so much out of it when you wouldn't be nitpicking for the categories of what could you use on your finals or on the essay part or whatever. And 1984 is excellently a great example, because when you are shackled by that school reading mindset, you are pretty much like its main character, Winston, where in the beginning he was almost insane because of the brainwashing, and as he journaled, he started to really rediscover himself. And as you start to read properly without that school mindset that's getting shoved down your throats, like kind of like in 1984, the propaganda and whatever and way of thinking, you start to really rediscover the joy of reading, and you may rediscover parts of yourself in the story more, which you wouldn't pay attention to. And you may actually figure out, hey, why do I like this story so much? Okay, here's the chapter list. Chapter 1, obsession equals freedom. Chapter 2, exploring. Chapter 1, obsession equals freedom. As I've mentioned when speaking about 1984, unshackling your mind is something you need to do. And how do you do that? Well, that is by allowing yourself to really reclaim the option to choose what you really want to read. And I don't mean by that to pick a self-help book, whatever. No, I mean by this, read fiction too. And yeah, I know mainstream advice says, read a book a week, only self-help / business books. Yeah, sure you can do that, but then you make the same mistake which school system does with its mandatory reading. You make reading a chore. And yeah, sure, it can be fun too, and that's why I love reading self-help and business books. Like, I have a few dozens on my Kindle. I have a few paperbacks of my favorite ones. But here's the thing, if you read only for your work life or for improvement, reading starts to become just another part of the grind. Suddenly the kind of awe and enjoyment kind of starts to fade from it. It's just like you come back to reading another book and you don't have that awe moment. Like, yes, you sure get those aha moments, like where you're like, okay, this is how I do this is why this didn't work. You get those, but you don't have that sense of wonder and enjoyment out of reading. Like, it just faded away somewhere along the way. And here's the way to reclaim that, is to just allow yourself to really read whatever you want to read. And by the way, you still can learn from fiction, and fiction books may change your life more than self-help books. For example, 1984 changed my relationship with technology way more than Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, and that is a book dedicated to changing your relationship with the technology. And it still didn't achieve as much as 1984. Or another example of the Albert Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus, which was an amazing book, and actually I'd say I learned the same lessons, or I could have learned the same lessons from The Perfect Run. And actually, The Perfect Run got me to read this book. The Perfect Run is a fiction novel, a sci-fi one, but one that you can really, learn a few things like. And by the way, The Perfect Run is, in my opinion, 10 out of 10 book for a fiction book that still can teach you stuff. And maybe a section of 5 a.m. Club, which, like, yeah, it has a fiction story inside, but there's also moments of like pure coaching from Robin Sharma inside, so that's kind of a weird in-between of self-help and fiction as well. But sure, The Perfect Run may teach you the same as The Myth of Sisyphus in way longer format, but it will also give you a lot of entertainment, and hey, it will have a nice philosophy with it as well. And funnily enough, the philosophy of The Perfect Run I'm applying while recording this video, because you don't have a clue how many runs it took to really dial this video in the way that you see it at the end. But wait, where's the obsession part? Here it is. Because if you are obsessed, aka you start to think about the thing, even when you're not doing it, as just kind of like a part of intrusive thoughts, it is kind of start of the obsession, and that's good. Thank God for that, because that means that if you are obsessed, you will start to find solutions in most unlikely of places. And here's a few examples of that. When I read The Perfect Run, I was kind of thinking, how can I improve my YouTube videos? And then I got the, go and redo every part until you get it perfectly, and then move on to the next thing mentality of that novel really kicked in, and I started doing that religiously. And another example of that is when I listened to the song Carolus Rex by Sabathon. I got in an insight, that aha moment where like something just clicked, because when things get said the right way, it can be in a novel, it can be in a TV show, movie, whatever, tips over the last domino and things just start to click in, and you get that big aha moment. And one of those insight, when it finally clicked, I turned this into a YouTube video you can check out later. It's gonna be linked down in the description. Of course, it is an old video, but it's still gonna be kind of interesting to see that, hey, I really do what I preach. Like, I got that insight the same way I'm telling you that you can get insights, and I turn that into a YouTube video. So this is why obsession equals freedom, because when you are obsessed on finding solutions, finding ways to improve, you can be free to look for them in most unlikely places, whether it's a song or a novel or, or a piece of media. And if that piece of media, gave you some inspiration, it was worth what you paid for it in money or time 10 or 50 fold sometimes. Chapter 2, Exploring. Excellence loves the relentless. Because if you are relentlessly obsessed with the new problem that came out and you're trying to solve it, you will find the inspiration, like you will just find solutions. Like, it's a man with the hammer sees every problem as a nail kind of mentality took into finding the solutions. And because of that, you'll just see solutions in everything, so you might as well enjoy some stuff. And yeah, I can hear those voices of doubt that, hey, well, what can I get from a book like X or Y and Z? Like, what can you learn from Harry Potter? Well, someone would say. Then Jordan Peterson, read Harry Potter, and he identified that, hey, there's a symbolism of in that Golden Snitch in the game of Quidditch, where like, you are playing a game, which like, is equivalent to your mundane task, more of a mundane pursuits in life, but there is a greater goal. There's a greater game of like catching that Golden Snitch, fulfilling your purpose in life. And that's like kind of a thing that kind of trumps in its importance the daily pursuits, the daily games that you play. And yeah, I know you're not Jordan Peterson, I'm not Jordan Peterson, but like but like me with that Cyberpunk song, you will have those aha moments where you just connect the dots because something was said right, or something just came up in a particular way that just kind of make things click. And that is precisely the point of exploring. This is why, if you wouldn't further your horizon, you wouldn't really know about many things, right? You can agree with this. And if you limit your horizon to only self-help books, and you will only get as far as those self-help book, go, which is quite far still. But, when you but you might as well learn those lessons from other sources. Like, there is no new knowledge. Like, I want you to know that there is no new knowledge. It's just same thing, same truths, repeating all over the place. You can see it in religions, in stories. There's always the story of a hero, archetype that started way back with Gilgamesh and is going towards, and it's continued with Hobbit, with Potter, as an example. You see those books, you see those archetypal stories, and they just work after thousands of years. So like knowledge has no expiring date, and things are just regurgitated over and over and over again, no matter where you look. So you might as well just give yourself a variety. Same like nutrients in foods. You've got the same nutrients in meat, in plants, in processed products. You got the same nutrients, right? Calories, variance may vary. But if you want a balanced diet, there's a lot of ways to go about that. Of course, not all of those will be healthy long term, but because you will be, needing to compensate for imbalances here and there. But as long as it gets the job done, it gets the job done. Reading books that are like self-help books is like using a Phillips driver, that X-shaped screwdriver to unscrew the screw. Using those novels is like, using that single flat, that single-edged flat screwdriver. If it's the right size, it'll unscrew the same screw. It will be a bit harder, it might strip the, thread a little bit, but it will get the job done. And that's the what you will take away from this video. So action step for today's video is pick up a book, any book, whether it's like, a fiction, a novel, or whatever. Hell, it can be even 1984, because you will read this and you will rethink your relationship with social media and, technology overall. But it can be something, if you like sci-fi, Perfect Run is good. If you like, if you just want to chill with, I don't know, a thriller, pay Sherlock a visit. If you want some fantasy, revisit a nostalgia book like The Hobbit, whatever. Anyhow, if you like this video, subscribe, and if you want one-on-one help from me to help you read better and remember more from it, you can hit me up on Instagram. You will find the tag down below. See you in the next video. Bye.